We're now going to move to education. First question. As Lieutenant Governor, what innovations in education would you recommend to improve the government school system? And we'll start with EW.
One, I support a constitutional amendment to give parents the right to choose their children's education. Parental choice in education is a fundamental right. I think nothing was more insulting. When we talk about reaching minorities, in the city of Washington, D.C., the overwhelming number of black parents, overwhelmingly by about 68%, supported school choice. They had a program to give children an opportunity to choose different schools. President Barack Obama killed it in order to satisfy the unions. And it is about time we as Republicans went out and told folks, we want your children to have the best possible education and want you to be able to choose that education. That's something that unites us, folks. It doesn't divide us.
Well, you know, there's 7 of us up here, okay? And this is called competition. We're all competing to ask you to be delegates for us to the convention. There are people out here, I'll bet you, that own businesses that are similar in nature. And what are you doing? You're competing. You're competing for customers to come to your store to buy your goods. Folks, could someone please explain to me how competition in education is a bad thing? Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, you know, when I see these spelling bees and I see these homeschool kids always winning these things, you know, I'm going to tell you right now, the competition is working. So I think we do need a constitutional amendment. It's a long-winded answer. I don't want to give it now. There's a lot of history as to why Virginia's Constitution is so goofed up with respect to the school choice thing. It's very involved. It involves a Blaine amendment. It's very, very hard. But I would tell you this, it needs to be changed so that we can have, you know what I'm talking about, the Blaine amendment? It really needs to be changed so we can have legitimate competition. Public schools, and my wife's a public school teacher, and this is what she says to me. Public schools have nothing to fear from competition. Nothing. Nothing. Don't believe it. Don't buy it. We need competition.
I think these two have adequately talked about competition, and so, and I think we're all in agreement that, not every child learns the same way. A mainstream public school classroom doesn't work for every child. A public charter school with a smaller class size or that is aimed towards children who learn a special way is very important. So it's more than providing competition, it's also providing an environment that is the best learning environment for each individual child. And I think that's a very important component when we're looking at education. Now, in adding to how we could improve the government school system, so I'm going to address this to public schools, because not every parent can stay home and homeschool their child, and not every parent can afford private schools. And I want to add, that school voucher program in Washington, D.C., my husband, Congressman Tom Davis, sponsored that legislation, and it has been amazingly successful. When Mayor Gray announced that he was going to dissolve that program, the parents were furious, because that's how they were counting on the best public school education is charter schools, tons and tons of charter schools that they're utilizing. So I'm proud that he was able to do that for the kids there. And it's something that we need to consider in very poor performing school districts everywhere. But the other thing too is our teachers. I think that most of our teachers want to do their best, but we're not talking about principals. Who is the leader in that school? Are they motivating the teachers? Are they supporting the teachers? Are they giving them the resources they need? And we also need to talk about university and college education. How are they educating our future teachers? I think those are important parts of our discussion.
Prince William County is now the second largest school system in Virginia. We've got more than 86,000 students. During my time as chairman, I've been able to pay for 12 new schools, hire 500 new teachers. We're adding an additional 2,500 new students per year. We've been able to do all that without a tax bill increase. That's what we need to do in Virginia. We need to make this a priority. Now, all I'm going to say about this is about homeschooling. Instead of punishing parents and children for homeschooling, we need to be rewarding them. Not only do they get a better education, as just statistics show, but they're actually relieving some of the burden off of us as local taxpayers. So we need to do more for that. You know, the thing is, what's frustrating though is the T-Ball legislation, which would have allowed homeschooled children to participate in sports, was shot down. Who shot it down? A Republican-controlled state Senate. There's a lot of words up here. Judge people by their actions. We have a Republican General Assembly, and yet we can't even get the T-Ball bill through. Now, that is just shameful, frankly. And not only should we allow them to participate in sports, but also in other athletics, but also in music programs and other programs. And due to pressure that I place on the school board in Prince William County, children that are homeschooled can participate in and take classes as well from the public schools if they so desire. Final thing I want to mention is this. If you're a homeschooled and you want to take a college class, you got to pay for it. There's no assistance for you. But if you're in a public school, it's free. That's wrong and it needs to be changed.
There are no long, complex answers to this. It's very simple. Do you know the way that we can control competition? Give the money back to the people. It's very simple. Virginia had the largest tax increase in our history in 2004. We now have all 3 houses. Why haven't we returned that money to the people? One way we can do this through school choice is simply give tax credits to homeschooling parents, tax credits to those who send their children to private school. And what does that end up doing? That puts competition into the field, and it will inspire and encourage our public schools to do better. So for me, it's simple. We've done it in Stafford County, cutting taxes. We can do the same thing with our state budget, and we can do that by giving people tax credits for homeschooling and private schools.
Better way to innovate our education system than to bring in a proven real-world innovator with real results and a passion for ed reform as your next lieutenant governor. When I decided to run for lieutenant governor, someone asked me, what are you going to run on? And when the first thing coming out of my lips was changing and revolutionizing our education system, that person said to me, oh my gosh, Pete, no one who's going to the convention cares about that. I said, 1, I think you're wrong. And 2, I don't care. Leaders lead. And our education system has been failing for too long. We need to take it on. And what we need to do is, as well, Republicans, when we talk about education, sometimes we come off as anti-teacher. And you know what? Yes, I want to end teacher tenure, but you know what? I want to make sure that Virginia pays our performing teachers better than any other state in the country. How are we going to pay for that? Let's take 15% out of administrative costs that have soared over the past 20 years by 320%. It can be done, folks. And lastly, we need to let the localities decide of when they're starting their school year. Richmond doesn't need to be defining that. Let the localities decide. We need to change our education system, and let's start with an innovator.
That's the reason my committee passed out the bill to not only increase the baseline pay, but also to provide incentive pay for our excellent teachers. Healthcare and education are the 2 markets that government protect from the benefits of market forces. We need wide open school choice where the money follows the child. The reason we have public schools, the only reason, is to make sure that no matter where you come from, economically, socially, geographically, you shouldn't have to have the money to be able to move to well, you should need to be able to get a quality education no matter where you live. If you got the money to move to a good school district or go to a private school of your choosing, then you're not trapped. But we are trapped. We are failing to educate children to trap in some of our schools. And that's the reason why we're moving the bill forward statewide. Came out of my committee to make sure the state can move in on those 6 schools, the worst schools in our state. And that's why I supported Mark Obenchain's resolution to amend the Constitution to open up our charter schools. As a matter of fact, this very weekend, one of my biggest jobs that I have to do is to make sure that we get the 8th vote this next week on the Tebow bill. We're one short on it, and I'm working on it on the phone even while we're here. No, the Senate didn't kill the Tebow bill, but it may as well have. The patron struck the bill, withdrew the bill, rather than allow it to be voted on. But we know where that one vote is, and I'm working on it this very weekend.
Can we, the people, help in that effort?
Yes.
Who would you recommend we contact?
All of them. All of the senators, why do y'all keep turning this off? All of the Democrat senators, because we could just use one of them.
Is there one in particular that's soft?
Well, let me finish the question. All of the 7 that are on education and health, and a particular Republican that I am, somebody else has said, I am actually prohibited by rule from saying so. The senator from Chesapeake.
Okie dokie. We can find that out, can't we? Grassroots activists. Okay, back to serious stuff. All right.
That's Senator Harry Blevins, by the way.